Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing how to become the next Great Ohio Main Street program. Before we get started, I just want to go over a couple technical things with everyone, just to make sure the webinar is going smoothly for you. First off, if you have any questions during the webinar, please type those into your chat box, and we will get those answered at the end of the webinar for you. Also, if you encounter any problems during the webinar, just go ahead and close out the webinar, click that link that was sent to you, and sign back on, and that will solve 99% of your problems. Likewise, if you're using the telephone, just hang up, call the number that was provided to you, and sign back on. First, we're going to have Matt Wiederhold, our Executive Director. He's going to give you an introduction to Heritage Ohio. Then second, Frances Jo Hamilton, the Director of Revitalization for Heritage Ohio. She will be providing an overview of the DART process. And finally, Lorna Swisher, our Assistant Director of Revitalization, she will be showing you the application form that you'll be using for this webinar. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Matt.
Great, Devin, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We are very excited to present this opportunity for communities across the state of Ohio and hope that we'll be working with some of you in the very near future. Heritage Ohio was founded in 1989 as a statewide historic preservation and downtown revitalization organization. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary or birthday this year. And in that time, we've had the opportunity to do some amazing things. One of the things of which we were most proud was being named as the state coordinating agency for the Main Street program in Ohio, and we became that in 1998. So the Main Street program is a national model that was created by the National Trust for Historic Preservation in the 1980s as a format that historic communities could use for downtown revitalization. Now, the Main Street program is based in historic preservation. That's its basic tenet. But we're really kind of changing the conversation today in the past couple of years to downtown revitalization being economic development. It's still critical to us to save old buildings and history and preserve that sense of place. But we're realizing that those authentic sense of places that we like to go and visit are economic development engines and tools for communities. Last year, we worked with the state legislature to get an allocation for 2 years for Heritage Ohio to do training, technical assistance, preservation, and revitalization in Ohio. Out of that, we have a set aside of funds through which we plan to expand the Ohio Main Street program. Over the next 2 years, we would like to add up to 10, maybe 12 new program communities to the list that you see on the page. So quick, Frances Jo will give you an overview of Main Street. We have 2 levels. Our top level, I guess we'll call it, is the affiliate program. These are programs that you see on the map indicated by the salmon colored dot. These are programs and communities that have a full-time staff person, director. They have a full-time board of volunteers. They have sufficient financial success and support from their communities. We also have aspiring communities that you see in the green dots. These are communities that perhaps are interested in becoming affiliate programs. Or if they're not, they still work with us through downtown revitalization. We will work with any community that wants to make their towns better, and that is what we're here to discuss today. So Frances Jo, if you could please take it away and give an overview of Ohio Main Street and the DART visit, I would appreciate it.
Great, thanks Matt, appreciate that. I'm gonna share my screen with you all. So there are a few ways that communities get involved with Heritage Ohio, and typically it begins with a visit to a local Main Street program or a community that's affiliated with us in some way, and then a phone call to Heritage Ohio. So contacting Heritage Ohio can kind of put you on the path to becoming a Main Street community or beginning to use those 4-point approach practices that can bring about downtown revitalization. One of the things that we suggest is having a downtown assessment resource team visit, and that's primarily our focus for the webinar today, is to give you sort of an overview of what that 2-day visit looks like in a community, what benefits it can provide, what are the preliminary planning responsibilities that should happen in any community that would like to plan for a 2-day downtown assessment resource team visit, and what you can expect from Heritage Ohio in that process. So typically communities contact Heritage Ohio, are interested in having a DART visit, and we have an initial phone call with those interested parties. Interested parties range from city staff, elected officials, local community members. Sometimes it's just somebody who owns a house or a property that might be connected to the downtown historic district. So these organizations can begin at just about any space, but we like to see a nice reflection of the community. So after contacting Heritage Ohio and deciding that you would like to have a DART visit, we simply set a date on our calendar. Typically those are set about 2 months out to allow for proper planning on the community's perspective, and then also at Heritage Ohio's level. Beginning to assemble your stakeholder group. So this is the group of people that are going to agree to work with us for that first year of planning, and we'll go over the responsibilities for that particular group. But we like to see a nice reflection of the community around that table. This is the group from which your initial board of directors will grow as you move into becoming a Main Street community. So it's really important that we think intentionally about formatting that stakeholder group, having entities in your community represented, like your library, your school system, a building owner, a business owner, someone from the city, someone from the county, maybe a homeowner, a resident that perhaps lives in your downtown district. We like to see a nice reflection of the community in culture and demographics. So taking a look at age brackets and male versus female. Also looking at what kinds of skill sets will we eventually need to have around the table? Perhaps a realtor, an architect, someone who maybe does construction work or might have some sort of intrinsic knowledge about restoring historic buildings would be awesome. So putting together that initial stakeholder group is kind of the big first step in a community that's decided to have a DART visit. And then making sure that those stakeholders understand their commitments. Whenever I'm working with volunteers, the absolute most important part is that they know exactly what they've signed up for, what their timeline looks like, and that we work as hard to get them out of being a leader as we do getting them into that leadership role. So making sure that those stakeholders understand their commitments. We provide a planning document that's pretty specified for any community that would like to have a downtown assessment resource team visit, down to how to set up the tables at each of those meetings. I'm sure you've all been in the space where you try to get people to gather in small groups to do a little project, and you always have a few folks that want to stand on the outskirts and sort of not engage in that. So even down to the room setup, the intentionality is behind getting those participants to play along with us, if you will, through that DART visit. Filling out your community assessment questionnaire. We'll send a little Google form to you to just get some baseline information. Do you have a Convention and Visitors Bureau? Do you have a Chamber of Commerce? Is there a local business district organization that's already functioning? What are the other organizations that we're going to have to work with in that community? And when was that community's heyday? When were the downtown streets filled with people, and how can we look back on that? Along with lots of other just sort of baseline information. So filling out that community assessment questionnaire is really important for us. sending any relevant information to Heritage Ohio. If your city or municipality already has a downtown plan or a comprehensive plan citywide, those are important things for us to see and know are happening. And then determining the locations for the meetings, sending those addresses along to us, and then inviting your community to that community visioning session. And we'll go through the schedule for a DART visit so that you all have a better understanding of what that looks like as far as the community visioning session. So on our agenda for a typical DART visit, when we arrive in any given community on the first day of the DART, our team arrives at 11 o'clock in the morning and we do a self-guided tour of the district for an hour and a half. That kind of gives us that blind sort of visitor first look at your downtown. This is a really important part for us to kind of see how are your merchants responding to new incoming visitors. What does the downtown district look like without us being sort of biased by the way that the local folks sort of see the downtown, so that we can see what your community looks like from a visitor's perspective. Then at 12:30, we meet with that stakeholder group. So that's a luncheon meeting. However many team members we have, we ask that tables be set up in that number of groups. So if I have 2 team members, then 2 tables of folks, so that we can kind of have some gleaning information time from the stakeholder group. We want to know what's working really well. Why have you had fits and starts? What hole is it that you are expecting to fill with Heritage Ohio? What are you expecting from us? And you know, the things that are challenges for your local community. And so we spend about an hour and a half at lunchtime just giving the stakeholders an opportunity to give us all the feedback, the reasons that they are around that table in the first place, and why they think Heritage Ohio is in their community for these 2 days. And then after lunch, we asked the stakeholders to provide us with a guided tour of the district. So this kind of helps us see all the things that you're super proud of, the things that you have already worked on, things that are working really well, but we also want to see all those things that you hope nobody sees when they come to your community. So a guided tour of the district is an imperative time. We spend 2 hours doing that. And then from 4 to 6, our team convenes for dinner. So we're kind of doing some last minute tweaking for the community visioning session and maybe the meeting for the next day based on the information that we've learned on the first half of this first day together. And then at 6 o'clock, we ask you to pull together your community. This is the opportunity for Heritage Ohio to speak to your community about the Main Street program. It's really hard to be a brand new person embarking on something so unfamiliar and to kind of expect you to explain this to your community. So this is our opportunity to kind of use the language that we use and to give a nice description to your community about what they can expect to see from a Main Street community, why it is that you all have invited us into your community. And then we give them an opportunity. We do a group activity with the community so that they can kind of tell us about why they go the places they go. What is it about those places that really pull them in and keep them coming back? We often visit places outside of our hometown for vacations, for instance, or even a given Saturday when we have the opportunity, we often would even drive maybe a fair distance to get to a place that, you know, that really feels comforting to us. And so during that community visioning session, we try to emphasize all the positives around the places that we leave our communities to go to and why that's so important. The community visioning session is a 2-hour session that starts at 6 and ends promptly at 8 o'clock. And then on day 2, we have another 3-hour meeting with the stakeholders. This meeting starts at 8 a.m. typically, and we run until 11. This is a fairly unagendaed meeting. And we keep it as such because often stakeholders are in completely different places community to community based on what happens in that first day of a DART visit. So sometimes stakeholders are still in the questioning mode. They want to know more information about what it is that this plan might look like, what the program might look like. They may just have a ton of questions. And so we spend that time sort of debunking anything that might be standing in the way, answering those questions, making sure that the group feels really solid around what it is that we're embarking on together. Some communities are ready to just dive right in, and we'll spend this wrap-up time putting together agendas for upcoming meetings, setting meeting times, maybe even working through determining a transformation strategy for the community, talking about mission and vision statements, setting goals, and maybe even putting together and working on work plans together. So this can be an informational session, it can be a work session. But we really strive to meet the communities exactly where they are on that day too. And then we provide a return visit. And this visit happens about 30 days or so after our 2-day assessment has been completed. At that time, our team, primarily I, will come in and meet with the stakeholders again for another 3-hour visit. We put together a PowerPoint that bullet points what each of the 4 committees, design, organization, promotion, and economic vitality, the projects and programs that we think should be prioritized in any specific community. So this is really an opportunity for the board to start to form and figure out from those stakeholders who would like to roll onto the board of directors, who's going to be serving on which of those committees, and then starting to put together, if we haven't already done it, goals from the board level, and then really looking at work planning at the committee level. And that's when we really start hitting hard the opportunities around volunteerism and really building a robust volunteer opportunity within this organization that will keep our volunteers happy and coming back time and time again. So the stakeholders have agreed to a few things before they say yes to sitting on this stakeholder group. We ask that they serve for 1 year to work with the Downtown Revitalization group. We ask that they attend 80% of the meetings that are scheduled and that they attend the DART visit. And then we ask each of those stakeholders to serve on 1 committee, and that means contributing about 6 to 10 volunteer hours a month. Within that first year, the stakeholder group will be given the opportunity to become full-fledged board members. Those initial board members can serve a variety of terms, a 1-year, a 2-year, a 3-year term. And then that is when we start really formulating the formal board of directors from this initial stakeholder group. And so I just wanted to point out that with each DART visit, we give the community an aspiring membership. I run into a lot of communities where we have a beautiful plan that came from a wonderful consultant, and then the implementation piece is really sort of missing at the local level. So we started giving a membership for 1 year to any community that has a DART so that we can provide ongoing technical support and education through that first year. Communities that would like to continue that aspiring community membership, it is $2,250 a year. And the one benefit that I want to point out, especially with communities that have had that DART visit, so you're getting your 2-day assessment, your return 3-hour visit, and then this membership gives you an additional 3-hour visit that you can use at any point in time throughout that first year and on any topic that you would like. So if your committees, for instance, need extra planning or time around putting together work plans, or the board needs board development training, those are the kinds of things that we can really focus those additional 3 hours on. And so hopefully there are lots of touch points with our organization at Heritage Ohio and any community that's sort of starting on this path. I certainly never want to go into a community and find one of our plans sitting on a shelf collecting dust with you all not really knowing the support that can happen at Heritage Ohio to sort of help you through that. So that's all I have. I'm going to turn this back over to Devin and Matt and Lorna.
That sounds great, Francis. Thank you. Lorna's having some technical difficulties, so I may be taking you through the survey. But I also want to tell you a little bit more about the benefits of being part of the Main Street program. It is a program that works in any size community, whether it's a small town of 1,000 people or a larger village or community of tens of thousands of people. Main Street is a national network and a program. About 2,000 communities across the country are following the Main Street approach. And then you also have the local network. So it's your community where you can reach out and ask questions and ask for ideas of how you can do things in your town. Oftentimes, Main Street programs have access to grant funds, whether it's through National Main Street, such as T-Mobile or the GM grants that they provide, or when Heritage Ohio gets grant dollars, those are often re-granted or given access in preference to the Ohio Main Street programs. It also comes with ongoing professional training and technical assistance. If you do hire a Main Street manager and become a Main Street town, it's kind of a crazy job where you're doing many different things. So it includes ongoing assistance to help that director and that board be successful. As Francis said, we have quarterly workshops around the state where you can gather with your peers and learn best practices from communities across the state and even outside of the state sometimes. We do have a state conference every year that is focused on downtown revitalization and historic preservation. We move that around the state. This year will be in Newark, Ohio in mid-October. And then there's also a national conference. This year will be in Birmingham, Alabama. And that's a chance to really embody the spirit of Main Street and be surrounded by thousands of people who are also passionate about their hometowns and want to make them better. And then finally, there's ongoing support of staff and the board and the community. This is a really silly analogy that I use, but Main Street model is kind of like Weight Watchers. It's a very well planned out, wonderful program that if you follow the steps and participate, you're going to be successful. So it's a model in which we firmly believe. So how do we even start this? We have, as I said, those state dollars where we can scholarship part of the fee of the DART visit to get you engaged. So we've created this Google survey that Devin has up on the screen that we're going to go through. So how you do this is start filling this out. So community name, just give us the name of your town. You have to be in Ohio. That's about the only caveat for that one. Primary contact person and organization name. It could be a board chair if there is a board. It could be a community volunteer. But who's going to be the lead person for going through this initial process with us? Phone number and email address, self-explanatory. We need to know how to get in touch with you. Organization mailing address. Where should we send documentation, and how do we stay in touch? The city and zip code. And then the big one. Why should your community be selected to be the next Great Ohio Main Street program? In this question, we want to learn why you love your community, why you think this would be a good fit, why do you have interest in being part of the Main Street program. Really, this is your opportunity to tout and be proud of everything good going on in your community. It's also your opportunity to potentially highlight some of the issues in your town and things that you would like to see fixed or corrected or heightened through being part of this national model. Some of these next questions are just to give us a better idea about your community, and with the magic of search engines, of course, we will be researching all of your towns. But what's the population of your community? How many businesses are in your district? What's your vacancy rate? Vacancy rates can be anywhere from 10% to 90%. We will work with any community that feels they're a good fit and has an interest in doing this. Does your community currently have a merchants association or chamber? Some will be yes, some will be no. Again, this is just to gauge what is the capacity of your community to be a participant and to engage in the process. Do you currently have a designated local historic district in your downtown? You don't have to. If you do, that's a wonderful step of progress getting into this. And if you do, that also shows that your community already values the built environment that reflects the history of that community. Do you have design or preservation guidelines? If you don't, as part of the Main Street program, we can help you develop those. And if you do, again, that's great. That's already a step in the right direction. What is the biggest concern about your downtown that you feel could be helped by being part of the Main Street program? It could be helping restore facades and buildings to reflect the history and so that it's more visually pleasing and functional. It could be that you have a high vacancy rate and want help in technical assistance in recruiting businesses or helping businesses there already expand. It could be that you want to capitalize on tourism. Many Ohio communities have incredible historic pasts that could really be beneficial to bringing tourists to your town to spend money. It could be economic development, showing the value of what you're doing and helping people get involved. And then what are you most proud about your community? What sets your small town USA apart from anybody else that you want everyone else to know about? So it's a very simple survey, and then at the bottom, we ask that you would upload a few letters of support for for your application. We can send you sample letters. I think we have a link there where you can even just copy and paste. Do you have a brochure or promotional materials? You don't need to send everything that you've ever done, but maybe one or two pieces that reflect your community and what you're already doing, or that maybe highlights what you would like to do. It's a simple application. This is round one. At the deadline, which I think is May 10th, I believe. Devin can double check that, please. What is that?
Yes, May 10th.
Okay, May 10th. The round one applications will be reviewed by staff and some of our board members. And then those that we feel have capacity or have an interest and really show an engagement in the process, they will move on to step 2, which will include an anonymous site visit and a little more investigation from our part. So that is what we have to share with you today about potentially becoming the next great Ohio Main Street program. And Devin, Francis, Lorna, if you have anything else to add, please do. Otherwise, let's open it up for questions.
I'll just say that I put a copy of this in everyone's chat box. So if you don't see it, I'll also be sending it out tomorrow as part of the follow-up to this. So you should see a copy right now in your chat box. But if not, don't worry, one's coming in your email tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Lorna, did you have anything? Lorna got added back on now.
Sorry, I was having some technical issues. I really don't have anything to add, only that we really would like you to hype up your community for us so that we are compelled to come and visit, even if you are not selected. So we look forward to seeing the applications. We know we already have one in the chute, so be sure to get all that in there by May the 10th.
And if anyone has any questions, please once again type those into the chat box. I'll lead off with the first question here. So a community is looking at potentially doing this. What are some ways they can fundraise the $2,500 to participate in this program?
I'll take that, Devin. I've had communities do everything from quite literally pulling together who they think they want to be on their stakeholder group and passing a hat around the table and asking everyone to contribute. A lot of times there are local foundations. I've had local banks pay for this visit. We've even had cities, municipalities contribute funds toward this. It's great to get buy-in from the community, and I think you can be really surprised about where those funds can generally come from, but don't be afraid to ask.
And our next question here from Bianca is it a requirement that communities reach out to Heritage Ohio prior to submitting the scholarship application? And should they, if they, is it required?
No, this is certainly not required. You can simply fill out this application, and then we'll reach out to you regardless of whether you're selected or not. We would like to help communities find their way down the path of downtown revitalization. So we'll certainly reach out to anyone who puts in an application, and no, you do not need to contact us prior to filling out this questionnaire.
Next question here for you, Francis, is so can you talk a little bit about the process? So once a community has a DART visit completed, they have our report to them. What's the next steps for them? What's kind of the path if they do decide they want to become a Main Street?
So communities that have had their DART visit will have a 1-year plan. When we do our return visit, then we will have projects, programs, events, activities, suggestions for that community to start working on. So my initial concern is always getting the organizational legs under the groups that are sort of putting their community through this process. So developing your board of directors, developing active committees, putting together a work plan at the level of each of those committees first, and then starting to do some additional committee member recruitment. So once the initial board of directors is set up and has been set up for a couple of months, then we may do board profile grid to kind of look and see if we need to add anyone else to our board initially. And we're going to be working with each of the 4 committees to develop at least one operating work plan under the goals that they've set so that they can start doing some active recruitment at the committee level on tasks and things that need to be completed. I like to see what I call a press releasable project happen within 30 days, even if that's something as simple as a downtown cleanup. And then we also want to see some longer range plans. So I've seen work plans come out of this initial planning process that are 1 year, 3 years, sometimes a 5-year work plan at the committee level. The board will be expected to put together a work plan as well. And then moving that community from the aspiring Main Street community means continuing to develop your board of directors, starting to build a budget. Your initial 1st-year plan will not have projects that will be exorbitantly expensive in the community, but we do want to see the organization sort of building of a budget and a long range sustainable funding model. So that'll be part of our planning. And then aspiring communities that would like to move up to become an Ohio Main Street community at the affiliate level and then eventually become nationally accredited, those communities will start to meet some baseline criteria. They'll have to have that full board of directors, all 4 standing committees, operating work plans and operating budget, and a full-time staff person dedicated to the downtown revitalization effort. And so we take a look at all of those criteria when those communities make application to move up to become an affiliate program and an Ohio Main Street program at that time. And then we go through a process for applications and visit those communities, make sure everything's operating at a level of excellence, and then those communities can move up to become Ohio Main Street. Ohio Main Street communities are also eligible for national accreditation, which is just a step above that Main Street level in how well they're doing in the criteria that are set forth by Main Street America. So we plan on having long-term relationships with these communities. Some of our longest running communities are in 30+ years with Heritage Ohio, and downtown revitalization is just not something you get to check off of your to-do list. It's just a constant evolving process, but hopefully we're providing ongoing training and staff support throughout that process in each of our communities, regardless of how long you are engaged with Heritage Ohio.
Kind of building off of what you were just talking about, our next question asks, what are the commitment differences between the full-fledged Ohio Main Street communities and aspiring communities?
So at the aspiring level, there really are no criteria. So I hope that communities will decide to a downtown assessment resource team visit so that you do have that first year plan in place. It's really difficult to put together a revitalization effort without a plan. However, aspiring communities can simply contact Heritage Ohio, pay for their membership, take advantage of the benefits that we offer. And at that level, it's really up to those communities to sort of engage with us. If you have a downtown assessment resource team visit, then we are changing that model a little bit in that we are engaging more with you. So my communities that have had downtown assessment resource team visits, I'm reaching out to them on a routine basis, saying things like, you were supposed to have a board meeting this week. How did that go? And are there things that we can do to be supportive to you? But aspiring memberships do not have any baseline criteria. Any community, any organization can simply pay for that membership and start taking advantage of those benefits. To become a full-fledged Ohio Main Street program, though, you do have to have paid staff. You have to have a board of directors and provide that roster to us. You have to have an operating budget. So we need to see a 3-year projected budget for the organization, diversified funding for the organization, city support in some fashion. We'd like to see a monetary support from your city, village, or municipality, and operating work plans, goals set, transformation strategies set, so that we can really see that that community organization is set up for success and that they have all of those baseline requirements in order. And those come down from Main Street America through Heritage Ohio. And we are sort of the agency that helps build up those assets in each of those communities with the community support. So communities that would like to make application, we of course have a preliminary conversation. I generally never do an application visit to a community knowing that they're not going to become Ohio Main Street at that point. So making sure that all those things are in order prior to us even doing an application visit is sort of our protocol.
Thanks, Francis. And also just something I would say too, since I noticed the community that asked the previous question. Matt, I'm going to let you speak a little bit about this in a second, but something also we're working on is also expanding and improving the urban Main Street program. Is something we once had, and we're kind of reviving that now. And it's in process now. Matt, do you want to say anything else about that, just to people on here, if they're, we're more of a larger community? How does this work for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So urban programs, that's how I got started in Main Street, was a pilot project that they did in Toledo, Ohio, in Cleveland. One of the things that I love about Main Street is it's scalable and applicable to any size community. So when you think of larger cities, oftentimes they have different neighborhoods that almost represent its own village or neighborhood. As long as you have a downtown district with commercial or mixed-use buildings that are historic, and if you have the 4 committees, it absolutely is applicable and able to be used within that area. Urban programs have some of their own challenges. There used to be something called like crime prevention through environmental planning or design, but those are all things that other communities across the country and within Ohio have helped find a fix and have come up with ideas. So absolutely, if you have a larger city or you're part of a neighborhood in a large city, you should still consider applying.
Thanks, Matt. Francis, next question for you. You don't have to name names, but what are some success stories since you've been doing darts for almost 8 years now? What have you seen that's been really great from a community that participated in one of these?
So the DART visit that always comes to mind for me is Lorraine. I feel like they really took to heart the seriousness of becoming stakeholders. I believe every stakeholder that was on that group rolled onto the board of directors. They have adequately, really, actually, excellently implemented the best practices. We tell communities all the time, you know, we're here to teach you what we think is best practices, and those are constantly evolving as well. I know that the mantras I was singing 10 years ago, 15 years ago in Main Street have changed a lot over the years because we learn more, and so we do better when we learn more. But Lorraine certainly, you know, they sort of took on and wore it like a cloak, and I often hear my own words repeated back to me there, but they are certainly seeing a really stable organization, which is great. Those kinds of things tend to garner a lot more financial support from cities, from counties, from grant funding. When an organizational structure is really strong, those are all things that bode well to local support when it comes to these programs. So they really didn't underestimate how important it was to have a stable board with term limits, giving people the opportunity to become leaders, but also giving all those leaders adequate breaks from being in leadership and constantly training up new potential leaders through the way that the organization is structured. And they expedited this process. I mean, I feel like they became a full Ohio Main Street program in fairly quick turnaround as compared to some communities that take a little bit longer. And, you know, not that there's a certain timeline, but I get the question a lot, you know, how long is this going to take for us to see monumental change in our downtown? And that goes right back to how much time and effort are you all willing to put into this, and to really implement the things that we know work really well across the board.
Thanks, Francis. Any final questions? Type them now into the chat box. I'll turn things over to Francis, Lorna, and Matt here to give any final comments.
Thank you, Devin. We appreciate everyone's time today. We really hope that you will consider applying for this. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to have grant dollars to help scholarship part of the expense for this. And it's another wonderful opportunity for us to work with additional communities across Ohio who want to celebrate your history and your downtown and work with us to help you lift up your community and make it an even better place than it already is today.
All right, thanks, Matt. No more questions, so we will conclude the webinar. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. All of our emails are listed on our website, heritageohio.org. Also, you can use the contact us form in there, either or works for us. Thanks once again. A reminder, just those applications are due on May 10th, so please get those in, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.